Welcome back to the Happy Teacher Pod. If you did listen to our first episode, if you are a first timer, you're in for a treat.
Yeah. We're going to be jumping straight in into actual kind of talking about why or what makes a happy teacher. And we decided that our episode today will be mainly based on how do great schools make happy teachers considered great. And well, I definitely have also worked in many different kind of places, and some of the places I would consider not to be so great, and maybe that was down to certain elements of the school, and definitely linked directly into whether I was happy or not at that school.
Yeah, so I think it's also probably important to note as well that we're using the term great rather than Ofsted, which say outstanding, because we've both worked at so-called outstanding schools.
Doesn't mean that they're great.
And it doesn't mean that they're great.
No.
And equally, I've worked at good schools, which I think are absolutely great. So I think we really want to stress that we're not talking about how to create an outstanding school. We're saying what's genuinely a great school for everyone involved.
For happy teachers.
Which is happy students, which is happy parents.
I know a lot of happy teachers that work at good schools, like exactly like what Jenny said.
And I know a lot of unhappy teachers that work at
outstanding schools. Yeah, so we definitely want to kind of stay away from the Ofsted, the big O phrases, because that doesn't necessarily mean that just because you're an outstanding school that you've got happy teachers. I've definitely seen the opposite of that. I know you have as well.
Yeah. So I think it's almost, you often see a kind of direct correlation, don't you? The more consistently outstanding a school is sometimes, you see the teacher burnout and the teacher turnover.
So in the last episode, my Room 101 was that I wanted to get rid of schools that don't have like actual staff areas where it's like a staff room rather than a staff like workroom or whatever else. And then we wanted to kind of link that into today's episode by thinking about whether if you have a staff room and stuff, does that make you more happy? And then
is that an essential ingredient of what we think makes a great school?
Exactly. Well, in my mind, I don't know why, but that for me makes a difference to my mental health. If I can go and have a cup of tea with a mate at school, 5 minutes, and have a chat in the staff room, that makes me incredibly happy at school. So we were thinking, oh, what else makes us happy at school? And we both said, didn't we, like working relationships with others, and
so good relationships with your colleagues. And we thought we want to do
especially our friendships with other people. And obviously this podcast has been born out of a friendship from school, aka me and Jenny. But so we wanted to link our break time. So we were having a little reminisce over some like stories about when we were working together. Like, what could we think of that was really, really funny? And we did think of quite a few different things.
We did have quite a few, but we couldn't remember because, it was quite a long time ago. We couldn't remember so we were laughing, but we're laughing because we sort of remember it happening, but we can't actually tell the story properly.
Exactly. So we didn't pick those ones.
So we picked one that we can genuinely remember well. But I think the point was, we were saying for both of us, we thought kind of good relationships with our colleagues was a key point of being a happy teacher.
Oh my God, 100%.
And I think that can be facilitated by a great school that creates spaces like a staff room that is a genuine break room.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Because that's a way of, making happier teachers, because you've got a way of kind of cultivating these relations. So at this particular school, we thought this would be quite a good one for the break time banter. So I'll see if I can tell it well. Obviously, Jenny, jump in whenever you want because you were there too. So at this particular school, different teachers had to take it in turns to lead an assembly and support staff.
It was literally just staff.
All staff.
It was all staff.
Yeah.
All staff had a responsibility to do one assembly in the year.
Which is also a really interesting thing to come back to in the podcast, actually. The importance of
we're talking like
inclusive community.
The caretaker done an assembly. And actually, I remember his assembly really, really well. He done a really good assembly.
I remember the headmistress's PA's assembly.
Yeah. So like, it didn't matter who you were in the school, like all of the, even like the lunchtime supervisors, like everybody done an assembly.
But you know what as well, because we will come back to this, like that might be sounding like someone's idea of a nightmare. So if you're listening to this and you're, I don't know, a receptionist at school, you might be thinking, I did not sign up to lead an assembly.
Yeah, that's very
But I remember having conversations with a lunchtime organizer who was nervous about an assembly. And we were both head of years at that point. And I remember, so I'd done loads of assemblies and giving her some advice. And she loved doing it. I remember talking to her afterwards.
A lot of them, and actually, God, some of the most interesting assemblies, because you could choose what your assembly was on. Yeah. That was not directed at all. I remember, like they were like, you could do your assembly on like.
So why did I have to do mine on my topic that we're about to get to?
Because also running through
was a separate thing.
Or no, or maybe they told you just like a assembly title, not a title, like a theme. I think they gave you a theme, but then they could whatever content you wanted within that theme. Yeah. And so Jenny was given a theme alongside. You done it with another colleague, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
one of the colleagues from our old guard.
Yeah.
Okay. So we will come back to the role of non-teaching staff.
Yeah, definitely.
Doing kind of more than that's maybe expected of them, but that's kind of the wrong word, because I think it was all to do with that school's vision of students respecting.
It was the culture, it was the culture.
Because I think it was that. It was to do with the students to know the staff.
It was to do
and
with the
respect
students,
everyone.
100%.
But yeah, so for this particular one, my good friend and colleague and I were doing an assembly together because we were given a word, so a theme each, and we kind of talked about our words and we're like, we both kind of thought our words meant the same thing.
Yeah.
So for, I don't know, English teachers out there or anyone that's particularly into their words, and I think I'm someone quite into my words, but I think even to this day, I'm not 100% sure, even though I gave the assembly, on the difference between them. So I had to do an assembly on openness.
Yeah.
And then my friend had to do an assembly on open-mindedness.
Yeah, that's right.
And maybe we just spent too long overthinking it. I am a bit of an overthinker. That is possible. Maybe someone's going to straight away listen to this and be like, clearly the difference between openness and open-mindedness is. But we just decided, look, our assemblies are going to be way too similar. Let's just combine forces.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but that in itself just kind of cracked us up, because we're like, what is after a while, we're like, what is the difference between openness and open-mindedness?
Yeah.
But we thought one way to demonstrate one of those words, I can't remember, you tell me, am I demonstrating openness? I think I'm demonstrating open-mindedness.
Yeah, open-mindedness.
I think we thought we could demonstrate open-mindedness by trying, both of us, live. Oh no, it was recorded, but recorded for all the kids to watch.
Yeah.
Try 5 things we've never done before. And one
foods,
of which
was
it always foods? Was it always foods? Maybe it was always food.
I feel like it was.
We decided
foods,
one of them, because we both really are into our food. So we all go out for dinner a lot, and we go to nice places where we try different things out.
Yeah.
So it was quite hard to find something that neither one of us had ever tried. But then we found this random fish paste.
Yeah, it was a fish paste. I'm not exactly sure what fish was in there at all, but they decided to get us involved in it. I think I want to say that I filmed this for you guys.
I think you did
in
film
the staff room,
and then I think we made you eat some as well.
Yeah, and then we all tried it, because obviously we had to get in on the trying of it, and it was it wasn't very nice, whatever it was.
And also we were obviously trying to show.
I quite like other fish paste. This one wasn't very nice, and it smelled very fishy. Because it was quite
hard to find something we'd never tried, either one of us. And then obviously we were trying to show open-mindedness.
Yeah, be open-minded.
So we were trying to be open-minded that maybe one day, after trying this food several times.
I'm Greek, so like one of our main dips is like literally fish roe, which I really love.
Yeah.
So I'm just really.
So yeah, we ate the fish paste. We discussed the taste of the fish paste. We made Roxy eat the fish paste. And then
they done an assembly on it. And actually, again, I think the assembly was successful. And obviously you guys had come up with this idea, and it was to try and get the kids to be more open-minded.
Yeah.
And have more openness, which is obviously very similar.
Yeah, although I'm not sure what we did to demonstrate openness, because I still don't know the difference. But anyway, I think the point was linking the breaktime banter to what we're talking about what makes a great school. Was we're both saying a key ingredient is
we had a lot of laughs.
Friendships.
Yeah, good friendships, a lot of laughs.
Have a laugh at work.
Yeah, definitely. And that definitely. Well, we were having like a little just reminisce, and even when we were reminiscing, we were just laughing so much about these things, because they bring back such good memories, and And it's definitely one of the reasons. I mean, I stayed at that school for a really long time, and
Yeah.
and that was one of my main
And you
reasons.
did say that, didn't you? So you had good friendships there.
By far, one of my main reasons for staying was because of my friendships there.
Yeah.
And I heard something on the radio the other day, that you shouldn't stay in a job longer than 2 years. Like, you should always be thinking about like your
Wow.
next move, like career wise. And I thought, oh God, I really stayed at that school for like such a long, well over 2 years.
Mm.
And I was like, but I don't regret it, because it did
Yeah.
like actually make what I'm doing now. Okay, maybe I haven't moved up as far as like I could have. If I had left after 2 years, I probably would be in senior leadership by now. But you know what, whatever, like it is what it
Yeah. And
is.
also,
Like,
obviously, I didn't listen to the radio show, but I guess that's probably quite a limited goal that they're thinking about. If you want to make progress in your career, move after 2 years.
I think, funny enough, they were actually comparing women to men, and they were saying that
Right.
like and then they were saying that women that stay at their jobs for like a longer period of time because they like the work environment, or they've got like friends there, that whatever, that they're not as successful like in their actual career path. And I was a bit like,
yeah. But then again, that's really narrow definition of success, isn't it? Because are they happy? Are these people that rise up, are they happy?
Exactly.
So my first one, which is linked to the break time banter one, is I called it collaboration. So
Yeah.
I mean collaboration in the sense that you are choosing to collaborate or have conversations with your colleagues because you actually like them as people.
Yeah.
So having that good staff room, having break time banter, creating those memories. But I feel like we've talked about that a bit already. I think what I wanted to add to that as well is collaboration in terms of just sharing resources. So I don't know about you, but as we've said, between us, I said this in the previous episode, we've worked at quite a few different schools.
We've both had like different and similar experiences as well. So like in the school that we worked at together, we basically had to share everything.
Yeah.
And it was like a prerequisite of joining the school. So like, even I remember, I don't know if it was in the interview or maybe it was slightly after, when our head of faculty was kind of talking to us about her vision for the faculty, but she was like, we share everything. Like, there's no like, you don't make a lesson just for yourself. Like, you make a lesson and everyone could use it, even a cover teacher if they're coming in to teach a lesson or whatever. So it should be there for everybody to use. Now, I have definitely worked in schools where this is not the case as well.
I think we were so lucky to be at that school at the time of that school's development, because as we said in the previous episode, that was the second year of the school. It was a brand new startup school, and so we had the opportunity to create everything from scratch. So obviously people have come from other, well, not obviously, but we'd all come from other schools, so we had other resources we could bring to the table. But it was a chance to say, this particular school has no resources of its own yet, so let's all make outstanding resources that we share.
Yeah, and I remember having to really adapt my thinking, because in my previous school, where I was an NQT and like I'd come from my PGC obviously and whatever else, I was told like, your lessons are yours. Like, if you've made those lessons, they're yours. So it was essentially, and also in my first school, I was very much like responsible for my own lessons, and that was it. Like, I was not responsible for anybody else's stuff. So getting into that kind of like sharing mindset was difficult at the beginning, I'm not going to lie, but my God, was it worth it? And did it make our lessons, oh my God, it made our lessons amazing.
And you obviously stayed at that school a lot longer than I did, and you could continue. Obviously you could make improvements to them, but they were already such good lessons to start off with.
They were.
You could use them year after year, obviously modifying them if, you know, situations are changing.
We modified them, or we changed schemes of work, stuff like that. But you had something really good.
So that school that we both joined, where we shared our resources, I'd been at 2 previous schools before that school. My first school, there was not sharing of resources. But what I did at that school and did at my second school is I found someone in my department that felt the same as me, and we agreed to share resources. And that's what got me through my first 2 schools. Do you know,
still to this day, even though, other schools might not share their resources, to this day, I still, because in the school that we were in, if you made a different lesson to the one that was on the system, you remember you used to just put your initials at the end of the lesson.
I still do that.
So it was still on the shared area. You didn't like put it in your own area. It was on the shared area. You'd put your initials at the end. So someone might go in and they might be like, oh, I'm more like Roxy's teaching style. So I'd like to teach that lesson that Roxy's put on the system, because I might have just amended like a starter or a plenary. I've not necessarily amended the whole lesson, because I like doing like a quiz, for example. So I might have put a quiz in there. Someone wanted to do, they could just click on my thing with my initials. And to this day, even at my current school, I always, any lessons I amend, I do not just take them for myself. I leave them in the shared area and I put my initials on the end. And I just actually think it's just great practice. If someone wants to use it, they can use it. I do not care. Like, you know, it's absolutely fine.
I've since worked in other schools since the school that Roxy and I worked at. I was head of department in the next school. So even though it wasn't a new school, there was quite a lot of new people in my department. So I was like, this is a chance to replicate what we had at that school. And I made sure all my resources were shared with everyone else. We had shared folders for everything. And again, I passed that idea on that obviously feel free to modify resources.
But just leave it in the
keep it in the shared area, put your initials next to it. Because I know that you do go to some places and you face a bit of a backlash, and people are very, and maybe people want to kind of comment on this, but people are quite protective of their resources. But from my point of view, I don't personally understand the need to be protective. If you've created a resource that went well for your students, why would you not want to share that?
I think that comes from this idea that like you've made it, like you kind of feel like connected to the resource, like whatever, which is fine and all well and good. You've made it from scratch, but at the same time, you will never reinvent the teaching wheel. And I think like you do need to have a little bit of humility about you being a teacher and thinking to yourself, actually, this is not the first time this idea has ever been used in the whole of teaching.
If you've made a good lesson and it's gone well, why wouldn't you want to share it with all your colleagues?
But this is why it makes it a great school, because our collaboration, it was like
and that links to the breaktime banter, doesn't it? The more you've kind of fostered good relationships with your colleagues, the more that you're like, yes, of course I want to share. I mean, I'd want to share them anyway, because I think we got it embedded into us. But I think the more you respect and like your colleagues, the more that you think, oh, I will share.
That definitely makes a difference. And like I've definitely seen that in other schools, or actually in that same school, but when you know, other people were kind of in charge, that people got quite like protective over there. But I think I've always stayed in that. I think because I was there for so long, and because we'd kind of started this new like school essentially, it really got ingrained in me, and I really, really loved it. I think it works.
And I think it works on really every level, doesn't it? Because I also think it forces you. So when we worked together, we'd take it in turns, at least in that first year, to create a set of lessons, and then we would explain them to everyone else. So in our planning meeting, and this sounds like it's really arduous, it wasn't. It was like quite a short meeting, because we got good at doing it. And we'd be like, here are the next 6 lessons. And they'd always have a good structure to them anyway, which we'd all understand. So, you know, here's your starter, here's your main, here's your assessment for learning. And we would just quickly explain it to everyone else. And then it'd be a chance for them to ask you any questions. It would also be a chance, you would be sat at the computer to be like, oh God, that's a really good point. That doesn't really make much sense. I'll make an edit right now. So it was almost collective lesson planning. One person took the lead.
It was collective lesson planning.
So then we'd end up with these really good lessons that all of us could teach from. But equally, because I know there are some people there that maybe work at schools where they think everything's too formulaic, where they think you've already been given your lesson plan, where's the room for creativity? I never felt stifled at that school, nor have I felt stifled creatively.
We were encouraged.
You can make any changes you want to that lesson, but you've got a very good lesson to start off with.
We had a kind of I don't know what you want to call it, because you don't want to make it sound formulaic, because we definitely had freedom over our. It was a basic structure, but it wasn't formulaic.
You do want some sort of starter, initial stimulus material, whatever you call it. You need some activities. You need links between them.
But we were generally encouraged
it's the basics of what you learn on your PGCE. It's nothing controversial.
But I feel like we were generally encouraged to do interesting like lessons. Like if we wanted to do something completely different, we could. Like we were never told, you must stick to the.
You did that amazing
Oh, go on, compliment me.
experiential. No, and I'm going to compliment you on history. So I'm the history specialist here. You did this. It was the one that you did, the experiential learning, and it was all about the murder mystery of Thomas Becket.
Oh my God. And I got the skeleton from the biology department,
Yes.
and I laid the skeleton down on the floor, and we done like a whole murder mystery detective on Thomas Becket.
And I
am not, I'm not a history specialist at all. I was a history teacher, obviously, for a while at that school. But not GCSE, just Key Stage 3. But still, like,
I to this day, so I am a history specialist and then ran a history department and then still teach history.
Do you still use that?
I've made modifications over the years, but I still use a lot of your ideas.
Oh,
thank you very much.
The thing is, the experiential learning, like, definitely was something that was fostered at our school that we worked at, because that was something that me and another colleague were encouraged to explore more in RE lessons, because that's my specialism. And so obviously I brought that into the history lesson,
which was brilliant, because we were working together, so you could bring that in and I might not have done it that way. And I guess just to kind of wrap up my bit before I ask Roxy, I guess it comes back to this happy teacher, doesn't it? If you collaborate more, if you share resources more, the big thing in teaching, it always has been, or as long as I've been teaching, is work-life balance.
It does reduce your workload, because obviously you're given that like kind of responsibility of however many lessons, but you're not responsible for every single lesson.
And also, if you're given a responsibility, and I'm not saying this is how you always have to do it, it worked in that school because it was a new school, but you could have a bit of a strategy. You could say, I'm going to take this period of time and do 6 lessons in a row, then I know I've done them. Or I've got this one free period, I'm going to make 2 lessons. And you can choose how you manage your time. But the point is, I think that is a key ingredient in making me a happy teacher.
I went for inspirational leadership because I have had personal experience of having really inspirational leaders. And again, we were talking about some of the people that we worked with, both of us, who we found inspirational. And I'm not just talking about the head teacher, for example. I'm talking about, middle leaders, or like leaders within a department even. So
head of years.
Head of years, like any kind of leader. When they're inspirational, they make me want to be better. And that makes me like happy, because I feel like I'm pushing on in my own kind of personal development of being a teacher, but also because it makes me feel like I'm working with a purpose. Like I'm working for something. Like I'm totally there with them, and I'm like, I get it. And you are inspirational, and I want to work for you, and I want to do well for you. Even taking a head teacher for an example, a head teacher that doesn't have a vision. I mean, this links a little bit to one I think you're going to talk about later, or maybe we spoke about beforehand. But if there's no vision there, and I've worked for a head teacher where there was no vision, and they said specifically, I don't really have a vision. And it was like, right, okay, then I don't really understand now what my purpose is in this school. As a middle leader, I'm taking from the leaders above me, and from everyone that I work with. And if you don't understand your vision, how am I supposed to understand any type of vision at all?
And where's the coherence to what the kids are experiencing as well?
Well, exactly.
If you don't have a vision from the top, how are the kids supposed to know what's the kind of collective purpose?
And the inspiration isn't just to do with vision, it's to do with like about how they understand education, and where they've worked in the past, how long they've kind of been teaching for, or not that's another debate maybe for another time. But should head teachers still teach? Should deputy heads still teach? Because
that is a really good point. I've worked at a school where the head teacher had as his policy that he made sure throughout his time in the school he would teach every single child at some point, because he took one year 9 class a week. So it meant as the kids went through school,
that you see, okay, but this is like our old head teacher, like they always would say that they would teach at least one lesson. I know that sounds like minimal, but at least you've still got your toe in the water. At least you still understand where the teaching side of things is coming from, like your teachers that are on the ground, Like the people that are on the ground, what are they doing?
But I also think if you are the head teacher, the clue is in the name. You should still be a fantastic teacher. You are the head teacher. You're not just the person in charge of marketing. If you're, I'm talking from the perspective of working at private schools. Like I know a lot of what a head teacher does is being the face of the school, marketing.
Right, I see what you mean.
But I think they should also be an amazing teacher.
Yeah, but this makes them inspirational. If they are a good teacher, they will be an inspiration to other teachers that they are like employing, basically.
Okay, so my next one, I think kind of links to yours actually. So you're talking about inspirational leaders. The one that I thought of was trust.
Okay.
And I mean trust at all levels. So a lot of it does link to leadership actually, doesn't it? Because whatever role you are, whether you're, an NQT or you're a classroom teacher without responsibility yet, or you're a head of department and you answer to an assistant head or a deputy head, you want to know that the person, however many people above you, trust you to do your job well. You want to be inspired by them, that they can support you, and you can also
just don't want to be micromanaged.
But you don't want to be micromanaged, and I don't think that matters what stage we're obviously at a stage in our career where we could have made different career choices and both very much easily been in SLT roles by now, and we've been teaching long enough, so we don't want someone that's going to micromanage us. We want someone who's going to trust us and hopefully in some way inspire us. But if they can't inspire us, at least they can trust us to get on with our job. And I just think we've both worked at places, and we've talked about how this can be demonstrated in different ways, where we either just have a feeling or it's very out in the open that we are not trusted.
I've had it very out in the open before. Not. I've had it where like they've said to a whole staff body before, like, oh, we want you. So when we were talking about lessons before, we want you to do the lesson like this. It must go this, and I'm talking like formulaic. Like it needs to be 5 minutes on. It was 10 minutes on the starter, but it was called something specific. I can't even remember what it was called.
Practice. I've seen so many lessons in so many different schools in my previous role when I left teaching for a while, where it was so formulaic as to say your starter has to be 5 minutes long and it has to be 5 retrieval questions.
Oh my God. So this was it was a similar thing. It said no longer than 10 minutes and it has to be, I can't remember. Oh, I think they called it a low stakes test.
Oh, yeah.
It has to be a low stakes test.
Quiz.
Yeah, low stakes test. Nothing else. We're allowed to do anything. No freedom of choice of anything.
And
And I remember I got observed by some person, I won't name names, and they observed me, and I think I done like 11 minutes, I don't remember, and they actually put it in the observation feedback that my like starter bit of the lesson went over the time limit by a minute or whatever, and I was literally outraged. Again, I can feel another episode for another time about observations, but my God, that.
But on that point about trust, though, because I can almost hear some of the naysayers and the people who, their jobs, they don't necessarily even work in schools anymore. They work for multi-academy trusts, and they're the ones saying, here's the formula for a good lesson. I know that there is a logic behind it, in the sense
that if
you've got, but even the kind of...
Give me a loose structure, that's cool. I'm happy to work with that. Kind of
tighter structure, and I'm not saying I agree with it, but their logic will be, if we've got lots of maybe unqualified teachers that are coming through certain training routes, or brand new teachers, ECTs, this gives them some support.
That's fine. Give it to them.
Yeah, but also
I'm cool with that.
Give it to them, but also don't make them do it.
Yeah, I think this is the thing.
Because the other thing is, when I said trust is one of mine, I think people, and I'm not trying to generalize for every single person that goes into teaching, but I think the kind of people that go into teaching are quite creative people. We might not
usually, like on the whole, I would say,
and we
like you need to be a little bit anyway, somewhat.
And you partly, or for me personally, go into teaching because you don't much like having a boss, and you're the one that gets to decide how that lesson.
My best lessons by far are the ones that someone hasn't said to me, you must do this.
Exactly. Because it's back to what we said about the lesson planning.
All of my autonomy and creativity was taken away when that trust got taken away.
Because, you have your shared lesson plans, your shared PowerPoints, whatever it is that you use, but you've then got the creativity and the trust to
And how unhappy were you? I was at my rock bottom. We'll talk about this in our fourth episode, but I was at my rock bottom when they gave us those things and they said to us, you got to do it exactly. I was like, I'm not a robot.
Exactly.
I am not a robot.
Yes, there is educational research about the loose
Yeah,
structure
and like I said,
for a lesson.
I'm more than happy.
But there is not good educational research to say you must spend exactly 10 minutes, and therefore if you spend 11 minutes, that's therefore no longer an outstanding lesson. Oh, and if you do this specific starter,
this will make it, an outstanding
How boring
lesson.
For the kids that every single
lesson,
what I said. They know they're going to get the save 5-minute starter.
And it didn't matter. It didn't matter what subject you were in.
Yeah.
It was every single subject.
But from another point of view, they're like, oh, we've got consistently
continuity
good
and all
lessons.
Of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, you've got consistently boring lessons.
I've had some great CPD in my time as a teacher, and I have had just some terrible CPD. So what we were talking about is what made it great CPD, and it was that it was catered to your teaching level. So rather than that, and now we do this in the classroom, we should be doing this for teachers as well. Like we do it in the classroom. We do not just teach a 1-level lesson in the classroom. So why are we doing 1-level CPD in some schools? I don't understand it. So no differentiation at all. Oh, so you might have been in the career 20 years, but
you might be in your first year,
but you get the exact same CPD as if you're a new ECT teacher. Like, no, absolutely not. Now, sometimes maybe if they're introducing a new strategy into school, something like that.
It's mandatory safeguarding training.
Yeah, fine. I'm not saying no to that. I'm just saying CPD needs to be well thought through. And when it is, it can be amazing. Like I remember me and an old colleague that's part of our old little group of 4, we went to a teach meet, and this was years ago, and I still remember the CPD elements that were in that teach meet. This was I'm talking like 10 years ago. Yeah. So obviously before pre-COVID, when we could all meet in a room together. I mean, we could start those back up now. This was something that was a collaborative thing within the whole of kind of like an East London like hub. That actually he found out about online, and then he said to me, I think you might enjoy this. And I was like, oh yeah, let's go to it. And remember, it was a school in Stratford, and I was like, I'm going to go to. It was amazing. It was such good CPD. Now, this wasn't school CPD that they had run, but this was extra CPD that we were engaging in.
But think about the amount of CPD you and I have been to over our careers, and that stands out to you. And I remember you. I don't think I was at that one.
You weren't at that one, but you remember us talking about it.
And I remember being inspired by you talking about it.
And you know what happened afterwards? We implemented some of the stuff into the school that we were in, which we were all in together. And not only that, we spoke to I remember he spoke to some of the other staff members, and they then included, it was like a market stall teach me at our school, because it was like this thing of, actually, this was so great because it didn't, basically we had, I think it was about 8 different stalls of people, where like, people were standing, they were showing off one of their teaching strategies that they really found effective in the classroom, and you could go up to whichever one you liked, and they were doing like a demonstration. Really they were talking about it. You could see it in practice. You could ask them questions about it, and actually you didn't have to necessarily go up to every single one, because maybe you wouldn't find every single one useful, or whatever else.
I'm quite happy with that one.
I like the strategies I find those ones that are not just a 1-level CPD, unless it's something like safeguarding, like you said. I find those CPDs so much more useful for my teaching practice, even now, because all teachers are going to do CPD throughout their whole career. And I actually think it's a good thing that we're always learning as teachers as well. But I think it needs to be well thought out to be a great school, and to make me happy coming out of that CPD happy and being like, I actually got something from that. That's how I want to come out of CPD. I don't want to come out of CPD thinking, oh God, I've heard that before, or
that's just hours of my time gone that I'll never get back. I could have been.
That's the classic. Books. That's the classic, isn't it? You come out and you're like, you know what, I could have used that time so much better to do something else, planning a lesson, doing or whatever. And actually, you don't want to come out of CPD like that. You want to come out of CPD actually excited and inspired. But anyway, on to your last one.
So my last one, and again, I think we probably need a whole episode on this because I've got a lot to say. So I'll try and keep it brief for this one. But having flexible working. So
we're going to do a whole episode on this for sure.
Without kind of going into too much detail about it now, I'm coming from this as the perspective of someone that also works, and a big shout out to this charity for MTPT, which is the Maternity Teacher Paternity Teacher Project. And we co-wrote a book all about creating family-friendly schools. And actually, we mean more life-friendly schools. So just to say, this isn't trying to say it from the perspective of only parents that are teachers. Anyone at any point in their life might want flexible working.
That needs,
you might have an older,
100%.
You might have your mother
this is not
might
just
be
parents,
ill and you might need to do caring responsibilities. Maybe you have no caring responsibilities, but you don't want to work 5 days a week, and you can manage the finances to make it 4 days a week, and you want a 5th day for leisure, for a different side hustle, whatever it is. And I just think that is still something, flexible working, where so many schools have so far to go. Women aged 30 to 39, which is a prime age for when you might be having your children, they represent such a large chunk of the workforce, and so many of them leave every year. And MTPT totally are doing research into this at the moment, and you know, it is for different reasons, but so often it does correlate to motherhood and not being able to get the work-life balance that they need. And so they're like, well, I can't give up my salary as a head of department, but I also can't manage 5 days a week, or I don't want to do 5 days a week. And I just think that's really important. I think a school, and there's one particular school, I hope I've got the name of it right. I think the head teacher's called Sue Plant. I can't actually remember the name of the school now. And we'll put it in the show notes. But I remember she set up her school, and she didn't have to do any adverts on the TES. She just advertised all the roles on Twitter. And she said, I am open to flexible working. Tell me what hours you want to do. And I was like, oh my God, I wish I lived nearer to where your school is, because I would absolutely apply for your school.
I thought you were going to say that she gave like free childcare, because I've always thought,
that
would be a game changer for
so much.
But
for me, offering and meaning offering flexible working, and the final thing I'd say on that is I don't just mean part-time work, so you can do this role on 0.8. I also mean shared, like job shares.
That is something that really does not exist very much in teaching.
There's a bit of it, and again, we'll put small amount in the show notes. And I want to kind of do a shout out again to another charity, the Shared Headship Network, who are really trying to push for people to co-run a school. But lots of other sectors, because I've done a lot of research into this, have job shares. Very high levels of leadership.
Why is that? They just don't know.
Well, we'll do it on a... We do like to do our own research, and we both have this book.
We both got given this book, actually.
So it's called Gathering Greatness. It's from the London Leadership Strategy. So it's all about schools working in partnerships with each other, helping raise each other up. And there's loads of things in it, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes. So it's called Gathering Greatness. But what we thought was quite interesting, in the appendix, they had their 9 pillars of what makes a great school. Again, they called it great school, not outstanding.
Yeah, they did call it a great school, actually.
And we thought, so 9 pillars of greatness. So they talked about a shared vision. They talked about inspirational leadership. They talked about exceptional teaching, learning and assessment. I guess we're talking about that because we were saying, if you are trusted, if you do collaborate, that allows you to do excellent teaching, learning and assessment. So that kind of leads us nicely to our last segment, our Room 101 substitution, which we still didn't have a good name for yet. But what don't we like? What would we change it to? So Roxy, what goes in your Room 101?
Okay, so today my Room 101 is going to be about CPD, as that was one of my great things. And my Room 101 is something I mentioned previously, but it was to throw away one level CPD. So where it was one size fits all CPD needs to go straight in the bin, and it needs to be way more adaptive. And actually, as that's the new buzzword in teaching at the moment, adaptive teaching, it needs to be adaptive CPD. And
so we want to get into schools, integrate schools, carousel CPD or personalised CPD.
Yeah, personalised
So
CPD,
anyone-
adaptive CPD,
CPD.
that adaptive
So
teaching.
anyone at any stage in their teaching career actually
can
benefits.
access and benefit from
Yeah.
it. Yeah, 100%.
Love it.
Thanks for listening again.
Thank you for listening.
And hopefully we see you on the next episode where we are talking about.
We're talking a bit more about. So today has been about how great schools make happy teachers.
Yeah.
Because I know that you do go to some places and you face a bit of a backlash, and people are and maybe people want to kind of comment on this, but people are quite protective of their audience. But from my point of view, I don't personally understand that if you created a course that went well for your students, why would you not want to share
I think that comes from this idea that like